It's 2003. Pirates of the Caribbean is dominating the box office. For a movie based on a creaky old ride from an amusement park, it is shockingly good and a very influential film. Not just for me, but a whole generation of artists and entertainers. Something about the devil-may-care attitude of the main character and swashbuckling nature of pirates in general was very infectious. Fast forward 1 decade later, and video games finally had a AAA budget, open world answer to the curse of the Black Pearl. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Pirates weren't new to video games by any means. There was the Monkey Island series, Sid Meier's Pirates, and a reasonable argument could be made that The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker had a good amount of pirate content in it too. But none of those bring out the pirate in you like Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag does at its best, which somehow manages to capture the adventurous spirit promised by that 2003 film. But completionists don't just see games at their best. We often see them at their worst, such as spending hours trying to form lobbies to farm achievements for an online mode that barely works anymore. Completing Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is still a fulfilling pirate-themed experience and an interesting evolution of the Assassin's Creed formula, even if the completion process turns the game into a grindy nightmare after some time.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of The Completionist, where we don't just beat the games, we complete them. Recently, there's been a lot of chatter about Ubisoft rebooting or remastering with a brand new remake, whatever these words are, regarding specifically Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Now, I love pirate media, I love pirate movies, the Pirates of the Caribbean films, so to me, this is always one of those things that I love to talk about and experience. I've never completed Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, so today's the day to give it a shot. Let's do this.
Into the umber and up to town, pump you blighters, pump us round. Wait for day, wait for day, wait for day, then we get our pay.
Why do we love pirates? And I'm not asking in an early 2000s pirate versus ninjas kind of way. What is it that makes the idea of the pirate so enticing? These larger-than-life figures loom so big in my life and the lives of others that I think it's worth wondering why it took so long to get a true pirate-themed action game out to market. I'd argue that we're kind of in a pirate renaissance right now. Maybe we never really left since we first met Captain Jack Sparrow, but despite the success of several pirate movie sequels and even the ongoing rare game Sea of Thieves, it's easy to argue that the best pirate game is wrapped up in an Assassin's Creed title. Since the triumph of the first one way back in 2007 and an even greater triumph of the Ezio trilogy, Assassin's Creed seemed like it was on a permanently positive trajectory. Assassin's Creed 3 wasn't as well received at the time, except seemingly by me, one of the Assassin's Creed 3 defenders out there, and I can understand some valid complaints. Assassin's Creed 3 did plenty of things right, including the introduction of naval combat. This became a core pillar of Assassin's Creed 4 during development that would go on to influence Ubisoft's not released / may never be released Skull and Bones? I don't know. It says next month, but we'll see. Black Flag is frequently a masterpiece of design. Story choices influence gameplay and vice versa. This is a game where practically every piece of the design speaks to the core theme, making the player feel like a pirate through their actions. Pirates need the open sea, and so the developers created gameplay that reinforced that. The plot reflects this theme too, to an extent. A main character, driven by the simple desire to get rich, eventually learns to care about something greater than himself and his immediate family. Now, I do have some gripes with the story, but I'll get around to that soon. One of the great strengths of Assassin's Creed as a franchise is that the creative leads have always understood that historical fiction can be extremely cool when well done. Who says history has to be boring? In the context of this specific game, that means having historical elements and settings that don't interfere with making the player feel awesome all the time, at least until you start trying to complete everything. In an interview with Forbes magazine, game director Ash Ishmael said that Assassin's Creed is about credibility and authenticity. It's not about realism. Over the course of completing this game, I can confidently say that the final product nails this feeling. As corny as it sounds, I wanted to feel like a pirate. And that means doing piratey ass things over and over again, regardless of how realistic that may actually be. I want to sink ships, get into tavern brawls, hunt for treasure, buckle some swashes, and most importantly, sing sea shanties with the boys as we sail in the high seas. Black Flag mostly delivers on that feel like a pirate experience. The balance of simplicity and simulation make for extremely streamlined gameplay, but I haven't forgotten you're here to watch a man go insane about completing a video game, so let's get into it. Even in 2013, Assassin's Creed 4 was massively ambitious in its scope. It was a cross-generation release appearing on the PS3 and PS4, the Xbox 360, and the Xbox One. I completed the game on the PS5 thanks to backwards compatibility. Upon release, Ubisoft was pushing online gameplay pretty hard for this title, wanting to give players a reason to return over and over again. I've complained about this on the show before, about online achievements and how they can often suck the fun out of an otherwise amazing experience, but for this title, I wanted to do everything it had to offer. This also meant facing the realization that Ubisoft expected the world to interact very differently with their games back then. In fact, the games industry at large really wanted everyone to interact with their games way differently back then. Black Flag really wanted the player to use your smartphones as a companion app. If you're completing this game more than a decade later, like I did, you'll note that the app is delisted. Bit of a different experience nowadays. Let's talk base game. Ubisoft games have always pushed the boundaries of what an open world game could look like. Regardless of how you feel about their quality over the years, Far Cry and Assassin's Creed have basically defined what we think of as an open world genre. Huge maps, hundreds of icons, dozens of locations to explore, side quests and adventuring, and very detailed, well-realized environments. Assassin's Creed 4 is no exception. It can feel overwhelming at first, opening up the map and taking it all in there is to do, but in this case, everything lines up with character motivation. The game director was concerned about meaningless content during the game's development. Fortunately, the designers managed to find that balance. Activities always lead somewhere, and every single collectible and side quest has a real purpose. Whether I was doing something to upgrade my ship or improve the player character Edward Kenway, I always felt motivated to explore. There is an in-game completion percentage that slowly ticks upwards towards 100% as you progress through story missions and achieve perfect synchronization. Every mission has a couple of side objectives, such as not getting into combat or using a specific technique to take down an enemy that must be performed to earn that perfect sync. And I can't forget, this is a game within a game. Unlike the previous Assassin's Creed entries, where you're flipping back and forth from Desmond to his ancestors, Assassin's Creed 4 takes place at a game entertainment development studio. This meta layer feels so smart and intentional. You're playing a damn video game, and the structure of the game reminds you of this constantly. The game even asks you to rate each mission as if you were a quality assurance tester, which is a fun meta layer. This also provides context for the 100 Abstergo challenges, which are in-game tasks to complete that reward you with bonus cheats every 10 milestones you hit. Now, your mileage may vary a bit, but this meta layer can also help you align with the completionist mindset. Because you actually are literally playing a game as a tester for Abstergo Entertainment, it weirdly made me want to push the boundaries of the pirate parts of the game as much as I could. It's a pretty genius framing device. As much as I missed the modern Desmond layer and learning about a larger overarching plot, and I did, trust me, I have thoughts about that, I think working for Abstergo is a unique idea that pushes you to go for that 100% completion. You have a ton of freedom in this game, once again reflecting the themes of being a pirate. After the first handful of story missions where you obtain your weapons, learn some basic mechanics like sneaking, eavesdropping, and of course assassinating, and after you steal yourself your own pirate ship to upgrade, you're basically free to do almost everything as you please. Every city and even every little island has stuff to collect. Filling out the database requires you to go above and beyond, cataloging over 20 fauna, including the mysterious white whale, 40 documents, 50 pieces of art for the art collection, 35 sea shanties, 22 buried treasure chests, hundreds of chests overall in the game, and 200 animus fragments. Some upgrades are gated behind story content, giving the player stronger incentivization to keep the plot moving forward. After the intro, you start off in Havana and basically can move from the center of the large map to anywhere you please. The center areas are relatively safe, and the further out towards the edges of the map you go, the more dangerous things become. The game is divided into different sequences with 45 story missions total. I got into a rhythm of completing 1 or 2 missions, doing some side content, improving my gear, then finishing a couple more story missions before looping back around to the side content. And by doing this, I had Edward fully upgraded about halfway through the game. Even with that, it's still worth it to keep collecting money and resources, because fully completing this game and even upgrading the Jackdaw, the ship, to its fullest potential takes over $300,000, not to mention all of the wood, metal, and cloth that you will need to gather too for those improvements. There are 61 trophies total to collect, 51 are tied to the main game, and another 10 are spread out between the 2 pieces of DLC, Blackbeard's Wrath and Freedom Cry, a story-focused content pack that focuses on Adewale, the former quartermaster or first mate of the Jackdaw. So I've completed several Assassin's Creed games at this point. There's a certain cadence to doing so. I loved completing most of Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and the moment-to-moment gameplay is pretty solid for an older title. But with the good comes some of the bad. Playing Assassin's Creed 4, I had a lot of highlights. But like hunting a buried treasure that doesn't turn out to be worth anything, completing Assassin's Creed 4 left me burnt out and more than a little bit frustrated.
Johnny Poker too. Oh, to me Johnny Poker, we'll all go on a jamboree. To me Johnny Poker too.
It was ultimately a strange experience completing Black Flag today. In many ways, this game feels like it was made to appeal just for me. Pirates, streamlined mechanics, extremely swaggy art direction, and great character work. For the most part, this stuff works well. There's a reason Assassin's Creed 4 is frequently cited as the fan favorite Assassin's Creed game. As a pirate sim, Assassin's Creed 4 hits the nail on the head. But as an Assassin's Creed game, I was personally left wanting more at the end of the experience. Now, I enjoyed the game, but perhaps not as much as I would have hoped. Maybe my expectations weren't in the right place to begin with. First and foremost, I love how hard this game leans into the pirateness of it all. It's one of the main things the pirates do. They plunder. And what is a completionist if not someone who plunders the hell out of games, seeking to find everything they have to offer? There was a nice synergy between the mechanics of the game and how I played it. Plundering other ships is very empowering and fun, and I don't even care that it's unrealistic. By the time I completed everything, I had probably disabled and plundered more ships than ever actually sailed on the open sea in that time period. Combat itself is a high point, an action-focused evolution of what the series have been doing up well through Assassin's Creed 3. This time around, Edward has 2 cutlasses and can upgrade himself to carry up to 4 pistols at once. He's still got the signature hidden blades and can even drop smoke bombs and use other tools like the rope knife. The gameplay toolkit is great, and it gives you plenty of options in battle if you can't avoid combat, and provides many ways to be stealthy if that's your thing. I think the animations in this game really hold up. Slicing up soldiers always looks cool and feels great, and the euphoria you feel when you swing over to an enemy ship on a rope, land, and then bust out your pistols and blow people away is unmatched. The naval combat is sweet. Black Flag expanded on it and refined the system introduced in Assassin's Creed 3, giving the player many options for ship-to-ship combat. Upgrading the jackdaw from a busted up ship to a worthy sea vessel feels amazing. Ship combat is downright good. All the combat works because of how well the art direction is integrated into everything. Assassin's Creed games have always had extremely detailed environments and character design, and Black Flag is no exception. Yeah, it certainly shows its age at times. The water still looks incredible, and the character designs are top-notch. Again, this was a launch title for the PlayStation 4. Havana is a beautiful city and a nice change from the boxy structures of colonial America featured in Assassin's Creed 3. But this is right around where I started to notice some of the cracks in the Assassin's Creed facade. Assassin's Creed has always had fun when incorporating real-life historical figures into the plot, but in this game, I don't think they nailed the execution in terms of stakes and motivation. Don't get me wrong, I love who's here. Stede Bonnet, the gentleman pirate who you might recognize from the HBO Max show Our Flag Means Death. That's one of the major first NPCs you interact with throughout the game. Yeah, there's also James Kidd and even the famous Blackbeard, who has his own DLC pack for the online play. And shoutouts to Adewale, a tremendous character, a black pirate who goes on to star in his own awesome story-based standalone game where he frees hundreds of slaves from sugar plantations. Freedom's Cry is a great example of how to make spin-off DLC that stands tall on its own. I also want to give shoutouts to Aveline and her DLC. She had her own game called Assassin's Creed Liberty, and she has her own story pack that takes place within all of this chaos. It's really great. But even though the cast is cool and Edward Kenway himself is swaggy as hell, I don't feel like it all hangs together as seamlessly as I would have loved. The cast is fun, but I felt after completing the game that motivations were a tiny bit thin, especially on Edward's side, considering how much time this story takes place from year to year. A common complaint about Assassin's Creed 3 for people who did not fully complete it was that Connor felt underdeveloped as a character, but completionists know that thanks to the homestead missions, Connor emerges as a fully fleshed out person. I personally felt that Edward needed something similar to this. Assassin's Creed 4 is meant to be a connective tissue between Assassin's Creed 3 and whatever would come next. Lead writer Darby McDevitt wanted Edward Kenway to be a different kind of assassin than players were used to. This is a man driven by personal gain and glory, a guy using techniques he doesn't really understand for selfish reasons. There are some nods towards the differences between Templar and Assassin philosophies and the conflicts that arise there, but I kind of missed seeing the ramifications implications of these conflicts. There are several twists and turns throughout Black Flag that didn't quite carry the emotional weight that I was used to or craving. I don't think the story was bad by any means, but there were high-stake moments with Edward where I didn't feel like things were that justified. Like when he's abandoned by his whole crew and then they join back up with him later on, or certain traumatic deaths that didn't pack the punch that I was expecting. The tone is a bit all over the place. On one hand, you have this very action-packed, swashbuckling story of revenge and freedom and fighting against the powers that be to establish yourself. And on the other side, a serious story of love and loss and trying to be a better person. I never felt like the two sides lined up as well as I wanted them to, at least not until the very end. They got very close at times, but not quite. All of this is my roundabout way of saying a really weird hot take here. I miss Desmond Miles. I miss the modern plotline. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I always liked seeing how the Assassins versus the Templar conflict was playing out in the future/present, and how your actions in the simulated past affected that. Obviously, the direction that they took at the end of Assassin's Creed 3 would make a Desmond plotline difficult for Assassin's Creed 4, shall we say. But Assassin's Creed 4 jettisons this stuff almost entirely. Did I enjoy walking around the Abstergo Entertainment offices? Yeah, it was fine, it's fun. Using a tablet to interact with stuff is cool, but all feels like an overcorrection to strip away all of the modern plot stuff in favor of some sly references. The Abstergo plotline is so unobtrusive that it feels forgettable, even now after fully completing the game. I could barely tell you what the point of the office sections were. Just showing that the Templars are up to no good by making video games through the Animus? Something like that? I don't know. Personally, I didn't really feel like it landed with me. Close but no cigar. I do like, though, that you can see the fruits of your efforts from completing the main game in the office sections. It's always cool to see statues or figurines or whatever represented in the game as something you can go and look at later on. Earlier, I mentioned that Assassin's Creed 4 was kind of the bridge between eras of Assassin's Creed games. It almost functions as a reset of the franchise by excising the modern day component almost entirely, even as it keeps the core gameplay from previous entries. And for what it's worth, I appreciate that the storytelling is not a complete clusterfuck, even though it might seem that way from the outside. There are some clever character connections that keep the continuity intact, but the core Assassin's Creed 4 formula is almost done better in the side project released around a year later, the former PS3 exclusive Assassin's Creed Rogue. Now, I'm not going to dive deep into that in this video, but I fired it up almost immediately after completing Black Flag just to see what the game was all about. And you know what? I was surprised to find that Assassin's Creed Rogue delivers more fully on concepts that Black Flag introduced. I can't say if completing it is a more fulfilling experience, though I suspect it might be. Rogue could just stealthily be the most interesting Assassin's Creed game thus far, but that's a video for another day. There's a lot that works about Assassin's Creed 4. Combat, art direction, general vibes, but when it comes to completion, the online requirements are nightmarish at best. They absolutely destroyed any momentum and goodwill I built during to the lead up of this. And I can't recommend doing them, honestly, even if you're a diehard fan of everything Assassin's Creed related.
Oh, don't just hear the old man say, goodbye, fare ye well, goodbye, fare ye well. Oh, don't just hear the old man say, hurrah, ye boys, we're homeward bound.
It will not shock you to learn that a pretty fun game that should be fairly easy to complete is absolutely waylaid by bullshit online requirements. That's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as when AAA studios started blending together online requirements and solo achievements. And not one confined to Ubisoft games. The original Red Dead Redemption has a similar problem, and several modern Nintendo games suffer from this as well. Looking at you, new Pokemon Snap. I think what was most disappointing about the Black Flag online achievements is that they are unrewarding, unnecessary, and more importantly, absolutely broken to even try and execute. Part of me gets all of this, right? Publishers want to give their games longevity, so they work in an online mode to give players something else to focus on after blowing through the single player campaign. When this game released, it was at the tail end of one console generation and served to kick off another. In my opinion, Ubisoft saw opportunities when they realized they could capitalize off of an already well-established online infrastructure and get their hooks into another one just as it was finding its footing. It would seem that that bet would pay off. In a 10th anniversary tweet from October 29th of 2023, Ubisoft boasted that the game had over 30 million players. It's just unfortunate that a pretty fun online component is hampered by poor maintenance, and frustrating that the trophies are tied to these online modes. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I hate it when 100% completion, not just the platinum trophy, is tied to online requirements. Completing Black Flag relies heavily on the idea that you would play it with a group of friends or with one of the companion apps. One specific mechanic where you capture defeated ships and send them out on raids becomes a waiting game that ultimately by the end takes up to 36 hours to complete because you are clearly meant to do it using the online components. This is honestly difficult to describe unless you've attempted to do it by yourself, but know that the waiting game is real and super annoying. The payoff for these recruitment missions where you send pirate ships off to clear areas isn't even that useful. Yes, increasing your rank is cool and you do get some rewards, and some of those rewards are tied to weapons, costumes, treasure maps, overall completion, and it goes towards those Abstergo challenges. If you want to get everything in the game, it is required for your completion journey. All right, here we go. The multiplayer servers, everyone, straight up don't work, even with private lobbies or private clans. I was surprised to find that there was actually a handful of people still committed to online play. There's also discords online for people trying to get the platinum, which I think is rad. So if you are trying to complete this game, you can join one of those Assassin's Creed discords and get help. And seeing these people online made me think that they were trying to reach the highest rank possible, which is prestige rank 99. I cannot emphasize enough how much there is no point to doing this though. I wish I could tell you that I had fun playing these online matches, but just getting a party together was so difficult. Even matching with random people was hard. In the end, it took a lot of the wins out of my sails. I did not give up. I threw myself at it until the deed was done. 2 of the online trophies nearly made me quit this entire completion experience. Committed to the Cause and the All-Rounder. To unlock Committed to the Cause, you have to reach level 55 in multiplayer mode, which essentially means get to max level before you prestige. It's important that if you're trying to get this trophy to not over level yourself in a campaign or lobby situation. If you clear level 55 and go straight to the prestige, you will not get the trophy. Which is possible because you could do really well in a private lobby or have a booster pack applied. Considering how it's barely hanging on by a thread right now, you can imagine the difficulty of all of this. It took way too much time and I basically had to brute force the experience as much as I could. The All-Rounder trophy pops up when you play on every game mode and use every ability and ranged weapon at least once in multiplayer mode, including all maps. This is weirdly difficult to track. I basically had to make my own checklist and go down it myself, ability by ability, weapon by weapon, stage by stage, game mode by game mode. Like I said, none of this would have been an issue if I could have actually played with real people and had no issues connecting to them. Now, on my own private network, I did have some NAT restrictions, but a lot of my community and friends that I played with, they didn't have restrictions and they couldn't match with me or each other. People with perfect ping and green status internet could not connect to one another. There are also some single player online RNG related challenges that are tied to the online connectivity as well. Trying to find at least 3 blue community chests or fighting 3 white whales is something that you absolutely cannot plan on 100%. If one of your online friends finds a chest as they're playing it with you, you can then find it in your world too, which is a cool idea, but that didn't work on my end because no one I knew was playing the game with me. I had to look up a YouTube video playlist that showed all the locations and act as fast as I could, as locations would change over the course of just a few hours. There are some really fun multiplayer modes in this game that kind of follow the similar style of what was established in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and beyond. These ideas are all fun and unique, but it's frustrating that you can't try and play these games. All that to say, the online mode has some interesting ideas and some fun challenges and modes to play, but because the servers have not been maintained all that well, all it does is make earning the platinum way more difficult than it needs to be. There are some cool completion rewards, however, to earn in Black Flag, despite the BS that the online adds to the experience. As I've said before, the online requirements made this game a slog to work through, but I gotta hand it to Ubisoft, there are some pretty sick completion bonuses in this game. Finishing the Abstergo challenges earns you cheats, and the cheats in Black Flag are pretty sweet. As you're playing through the campaign, you can do Abstergo challenges, and every time you hit a milestone, you'll unlock a cheat code. Challenges aren't that tough, and you'll likely do a lot of them over time just by playing the game normally. Stuff like skinning a certain amount of animals, performing assassinations a certain way. Every 10 challenges does unlock a new cheat, and the cheats are fun. Some are aesthetic changes, like giving you control over the day and night cycle, and some are mechanically beneficial, like making the jackdaw invincible. I like that you still have to work to finish every challenge. The game does not just hand you all the cheats. To finish all 100 challenges and unlock the final cheat, you must 100% the in-game completion percentage at the very minimum. There's an awesome cheat once you finally hit that milestone. Your entire crew turns into invincible skeletons. Extremely Curse of the Black Pearl vibes, and a fitting reward for pushing the boundaries of this game to its limit. I do want to briefly talk about something that I overlooked a little bit, but it's kind of a bummer. Certain weapons, outfits, and guns are locked behind community challenges. Community challenges back in the day took place in this little bubble where Ubisoft would post a challenge for the community to do. Those challenges are not maintained and no longer exist. I spent about 80 hours completing Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and I hate to say it, but several hours of that time was spent trying to just wrangle online lobbies to get them where I needed to be. If earning the platinum did not require the online mode, I'd absolutely say it's worth completing this game. But as it stands, trying to do so is rough at best. I appreciate that Assassin's Creed is a franchise that has grown and changed over the years. I may not have loved all the changes that Black Flag implemented into the completion process, but I can really appreciate the new mechanics that were introduced and the effort made to shake up the formula. I don't recommend completing it currently though, in case I haven't made myself clear enough. But if you like pirate media and you don't care about engaging with broken online modes, Black Flag is a wonderful time.
So, with all that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of finish it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye.